Shalom to the sons and daughters of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And today's topic for Torah Tuesday, I'm going to read the book of Numbers, chapter 35, verse 16 through 29. And today, we had a conversation amongst the brethren. And in our conversations, it came up about killing a person. What is the law concerning if someone breaks into your home and you happen to be there as like a home invasion, and you happen to unalive that person? All right. So we went back and forth, and one of the brothers was saying that it all depends on what state that you're in, because their state laws differ from one place to another. So and then we went into, well, how did you unalive that person? Depends on what the verdict and the judgment may be as well. Brother said, well, if you have a home invasion and you shoot them and they on the front porch, brothers were saying that how that wouldn't hold up in a court of law in certain states. Then another brother said, yeah, you're right, because I think it would have, the person would have to be inside the house and cause as a threat. Then another brother said, well, what if someone breaks into your home and you see them and then they start to run out the house, but you happen to get a shot off or some type of object that that hits him and unalives him, where do that judgment stand? So we went back and forth. We brought up some of the laws. You can practically Google anything now these days. But then, I had said, well, what does the law say about that? And once again, the Most High, He has laws, for every situation. Every situation, there's a law within this Holy Bible, the King James, to a point where brothers can come together and place a judgment. So let's get into it. I think I'm already sharing my screen. Let's get into it. Let's see. Let's get into Numbers chapter 35 and verse 16. And if he smite him with an instrument of iron so that he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Now, chapter 35 is dealing with the city of refuge, right? It's dealing with, at first it starts off by saying how the Levites have no inheritance, and that all of the tribes in their designated areas would have to have a suburbs so that the Levites and their family will live in those particular suburbs of that tribe area, because all 12 tribes had designated to have a certain part of the land of the land of Israel. So the Levites will have to have that suburb. So 35 kind of goes into the instructions on how to proceed in that. So I just jumped right to verse 16, because it's telling you that if a man smite him with an instrument of iron so that he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Now, now also, like I said, these scenarios, the Most High gives you the structure, and then you have to investigate the scenario, how things took place. All right. And one of this case is saying that, let's say if one of them had an instrument of iron and they start off fighting, and then the brother grabs a piece of iron pipe and he hits him, and then he dies, right? So if that happens, then the Most High said that he's a murderer, because number one, the other guy or the other party didn't have an instrument, right? It's just one of the parties had the instrument or a weapon to unalive that other person. So, verse 17, and if he smite him with throwing a stone, wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer, and the murderer shall surely be put to death. Now, also keep in mind when it says that when he, meaning that they have a name for it, they call it the slayer, right? The one who's actually performing the act. In the scriptures, they call him a slayer. I'm going to point that out as we continue to read. So it's even telling you if he throws a stone, a brick, and happen to unalive a person, right? The scriptures say he is a murderer, and that's the judgment, and he should surely be put to death. But remember, in all of these cases, evidence has to be brought forth, and the cause and the situation that caused two parties to start fighting, and the end results is one of these scenarios. Verse 18. Or if he smite him with, look, check this out. Or if he smite him with an hand weapon of wood, wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. 19. The avenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer when he meets him. When he meeteth him, he shall slay him. Meaning that the relatives of the person who was unalive, or a friend of that person that was unalive, right? He will have, it says, the revenge of blood. They call him a revenger of blood, meaning that person that got unalive, someone within his family, within his brotherhood, if he catch the guy who actually did that, had a weapon, and unalive that person, then he has the right to revenge the blood, meaning put that guy to death. We're going to continue to read, and the Most High is going to point it out. Verse, we'll read 19 again. The revenge of blood himself shall slay the murderer. When he meeteth him, he shall slay him. But if he thrust him of hate and hurtle at him by laying of weight that he die, or in enmity smite him with his hand that he die, he that smote him shall surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. The avenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him. So, once again, it's building it up, because like I said, when you start to read verse 35, it gives you the scenario. If that situation happens, then the high priest at that time will gather the evidence, and then the slayer would have an opportunity and a chance to go to a city of refuge. But he has to stay in that particular city or town that the high priest commands him or allows him to escape to. And I'm just going to jump ahead. Also, if that person, that slayer, leaves that city and the avenger of blood finds him outside of that city that was told to him to go and stay there, then the avenger of blood catches him in another city or another town and put him to death, then it's all lawful. that person who unalived that person will not stand judgment. So, read all of chapter 35. I'm just going to hit certain uh, uh, precepts to actually bring out the scenario, right? And the scenario is basically is dealing with the judgment of if one of the parties have an instrument of weapon, no matter if it's a stone, wood, pipe, anything that happened to unalive that other person, then judgment has to be brought forth. And the Most High is saying that that person automatically is a murderer. Okay. So verse 21, or in enmity smite him with his hand. And that's interesting too, because one of the brothers said, well, to be safe, it's best to use your hand to pursue the burglar, right? But then another brother said, well, hell, all of us may not have the talent or the experience or the training to actually, unalive a person who may break into your house, because most likely, that the robber has a weapon as well. Okay. But anyway, so it said that he died. he that smote him shall surely be put to death, for he is a murderer. The avenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him. Verse 22. But if he thrust him suddenly without enmity, or have cast upon him anything without laying wait. So remember, when he say lying wait, meaning that you just that you just kind of scoping out the brother. You know what I'm saying? You may be, somebody may be following him, or catch him and say, there he is there. You know how they do it. They do little drive-bys. They say, oh, there he is right there. So that's lying wait. So the Most High is telling you in verse 22, it says, but if he thrusts him suddenly without enmity, or have cast upon him anything without lying wait, or with any stone, wherewith a man may die, seeing him not. See, that's another key too. So now he's saying that if he wasn't lying waiting for him, and they happen to get into a brawl, okay, because that lets you know that it wasn't intentional. Or in verse 23 as well, it says, or with any stone, or without a man, wherewith a man may die. Check this out. Seeing him not. So if he throws a stone and it happened to hit somebody in the head, and the guy just threw the stone, he didn't know where the stone landed. So it's telling him, it says, and he see him not, and cast it upon him, that he died, and was not his enemy, neither sought his harm. Here it is. Then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the avenger of blood according to these judgments. See, so like I said, the scenario would have to be scoped out. Evidence would have to be brought forth. The parties that's alive have to be brought forth, and they have to hear what the situation was. But like I said, he also gives an out, because he said if he didn't know him and he threw a stone, or if he happened to get into a brawl with him and he's really not the enemy, and it's just something that could have been broken up, but it went a little bit too far, and the person got unalived, then there's judgments behind that. Okay. That's why the Most High said, then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the avenger of blood according to these judgments. Verse 25. And the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hands of the avenger of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to the city of his refuge, whither he was fled. and he shall abide in it unto the death of the high priest, which was anointed with the holy oil. See, another thing that we have to bring forth, because it says that bring the congregation, hear the matter of the cause, and then deliver that slayer, meaning the person that's alive within the conflict, take him to the city of refuge. But then it's very important because it says the high priest, because the high priest at that time is the one that gives that particular judgment. Now, there's a point in here that needs to be highlighted. It says, which was anointed with the holy oil. Now, we know our people had the ephod, the breastplate, right? And the high priest used to wear the ephod, the breastplate, when he was given judgment. There's scriptures saying that how the stone would light up, on certain situations or scenarios that the high priest may have taken to the Most High. So that's very, very important, because when at that particular time, it says that he's anointed with the holy oil, meaning that his judgment shall stand until his death. But he's getting that judgment from the Most High God. He's getting those instructions. Okay. Verse 26. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the borders of the city of refuge, whether he was fled. So now check this out. And the avenger of blood find him without the borders of the city of his refuge, and the avenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty of blood. Check that out. Yeah, let that rest upon your spirit, or upon your thoughts. So he would not be found guilty, even though he killed a person. Okay. I had went over a lesson about murder and killing, right? And it's a pretty good lesson, in our archives that we have. I may revisit it because, it's needed at this time based upon we're in this war mode right now. But yeah, it's very important to understand the difference between, killing and the difference of murder. There's a huge difference, big difference. But in this situation, right, verse 27, it says, and the avenger of blood findeth him without the borders of the city of refuge. So once the judgment has been passed and that person has been set into a city of refuge, if he decided to say, you know what, there's a party going on over there in, blah, 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 this other little town, right? And the avenger of blood happened to see him outside of the borders, and he is looking to get revenge. If he catches that guy, and vice versa, or the woman, whoever it is, then he put them to death. The Most High said, he shall not be guilty of blood. See, they got the Most High all twisted, man. These Christians, man, they got the Most High like some little la la land, guy that's out in the clouds that loved everybody. No, the Most High, man, he be passing judgment, and a lot of that judgment, if it falls outside of these commandments, the Most High just put him to death. He just put it to death, no matter what. He don't care about, this flesh. And that's why it's very important to understand his commandments, because then you start to understand how the Most High thinks and how the Most High instructed us to be, which is to be under the laws and the commandments. Verse 28, because he shall have remained in the city. It said, listen, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return to the land of his possession. See, even if he had a house, right, and he did unalive a person at that particular town where his house is at, he had to leave his house. But now, once the high priest, they said, once the high priest is dead, right, then all judgments is off. The venger of blood cannot cannot put that man to death. And also, the slayer can go back to the property of his possession, without anybody bothering him. Okay. And that's the law of the Most High, because we know how these days work now. We know people are not forgiven of anything. And not only that, but they're always looking for vengeance, or they always want to put a label on a person after, let's say, something has been done. Maybe he served a sentence of, and went to jail for some reason. They also put that label on them, right? And most of the time you should watch them. It all depends, like I said, on the situation. But the Most High is saying that in this scenario, in this situation, that slayer is able to go back to his possession, and once that high priest has passed away. That was verse 28. Verse 29. So these things shall be for a statute of judgment unto you throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Okay? In all your dwellings. You know what? I'm going to read verse 30. Even though I said 29, I'm going to read verse 30. Whosoever killeth any person, the murderer shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses. See? By the mouth of witnesses. That means evidence have to be brought forth, as well as the situation of what took place. By the mouth of witnesses, but one witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. Okay? Now, if we look at our situation here that's in America, and also even abroad, okay, we see how the people of this land and their laws are contrary to the Most High God's laws. They have a judicial system. They do. But is it fair? Number one. And number two, we have to understand that there's a lot of funny little things that goes on within their court system and within their judgment. But through the grace of the Most High God, he looks out for his children. And we know, by reading his commandments and reading his prophecies and knowing of his coming back, that once he set the children of Israel back into their rightful place of rulership, then we will give perfect judgment. Okay? Perfect. We will give perfect judgment. Now, I want to leave you with something also with verse 35. I want to leave you with, let me see, verse 32. I think I'm going to start at verse 32. 35 and I'll read 32. Verse 32. And he shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge, that he should come again to dwell in the land until the death of the priests. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are. See, the Most High didn't like any kind of murders, or killings. But once again, we know that these things happen. That's why the Most High put a law there, so that we can judge righteously. And like he said he don't like it because it pollutes the land where you are. So all of the bloodshed, all of the killing and the murders, You know, and I'm saying this because we can reflect back to how the Americas was actually founded through the so-called white man now that's ruling right now today. How did he possess this northern hemisphere, this land? Is by bloodshed. We all know it. The history is there. The people, our forefathers, you know, we are the offsprings of our forefathers whom they murdered. There's no way around it. There's no justifiable law that will stand to not say that they are murderers. Period. So, verse 33. So ye shall not pollute the land wherewith ye are, for blood defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed wherein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Okay, think about that. So all the blood shed on how America was founded, the Heavenly Father says right here in the law, it says that this land cannot be cleansed unless the blood of that person or persons who shedded that blood and caught and done murders to establish this country. Thus said the Lord. You know, thus said the Lord. Verse 34. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell. For I, the Lord, dwell amongst the children of Israel. See, that's what we on Torah Tuesday. I just like to bring out certain laws that actually the Heavenly Father put places upon my spirit. Not only that, but the children of Israel, period. You know, the Most High want us to engage into his laws. He wants us to meditate in his laws. And then he wants us to take his laws and judge the actions of what's going on right now today. And with that law, then you can actually see for yourself who is a murderer and how he does his murders fall right into these scriptures, because a lot of those people that was bombed, even in Lebanon, over in Israel, but as well here in this country right here, when they bombed our sisters and brothers in Mississippi, you know, they bombed our sisters and brothers in Philadelphia, you know, all of that senseless killing that he did, none of them had weapons to actually fight back what he accomplished in his murdering. So that's something to think about, Israel. Something to think about. You know, I'm gonna leave you with that. And with that, MOTC says shalom.